I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, March the 4th, brought to you in part by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Take care of the most important part of your cattle business, you. Avoid unneeded surgeries and long painful recovery times to fix bum knees, ankles, hips, and the like. For more information, go to kansasrmc.com. Also, Joplin Regional Stockyards, they just keep flocking in there, guys. Got another 10,000 at least expected here for their Monday regular feeder cattle auction. Going to be sleeping in Joplin. They're not going to start this sale until 6 o'clock in the morning. But you better be on point there at 6 o'clock in the morning. They're going to start promptly then. And it's just amazing how many cattle they've been marketing through Joplin. It's because they set the market early and they hold the market throughout the sale. And you can always count on getting a market for your cattle, which is really all you deserve. But check out the Joplin Regional Stockyard sales on DVAuction.com. Fire's even worse than what we thought. We've had a few days to kind of register what all's gone on there in the northeastern Texas Panhandle. It's been horrible. You guys have all seen it on social media and on the news and things like that. And I thought that I was pretty well filled in on the fires until Saturday, and I went and worked a bull sale for DVAuction, taking online bids there at Foss, Oklahoma. And that's western Oklahoma, not far from the fires. And I kind of got an eye-opening experience when I was there. It wasn't right in the fire, of course, but there were literally people there buying bulls because they had lost theirs in fire. And so that was kind of eye-opening. And then I had a chance to visit with some people that were right in the fire there and talk to them, and hearing those first-hand stories was really something to listen to there, and just unfortunate, all the loss of property and grass and life of the cattle. We've lost so much from that. So far, there's only been 2 people that's lost their lives in the fire, which is amazing. If you look how big it is, it's 1.1 million acres, the largest fire in Texas history. It's unbelievable, and the losses just continue to mount, and we're seeing more and more stories that they've only got it 15% contained as of now. You know, I told you about that little skiff of snow that come across, and it was great, and it brought up your humidity levels, and the wind calmed down for just a little bit. But then, you know, after Thursday, by the time we got to the weekend, it had dried back out again, and the winds picked up again, and the fires took right off again. They just never could get ahead of them. There was 4 fires total at one time, big fires that were going on there in the Texas Panhandle. They've gotten at least one of them completely out, but that smokehouse fire is the biggest one, and it just continues to burn, and it's terrible. And I was talking to people about the loss of cattle, and I think I mentioned on the last visit, or maybe the one before, that there had been some loose estimates of maybe 5,000 cattle, and I told you that I thought it'd be closer to 10. But after talking to these people that were in the fire and had lost cattle and knew of neighbors that had lost hundreds and hundreds of cattle, it's easily in the tens of thousands, and multiple tens of thousands. The guy that was in the fire, close to the fire, and he told me that he'd swear it'd be 100,000 head of cattle. Now, they don't stock cattle that tight in that area there, but it was such a huge area, bigger than the state of Rhode Island. I mean, it was just ginormous. And I wasn't going to argue with the guy. He went through it. I didn't. But it's easily going to be in the multiple tens of thousands of head of cattle. And most of the cattle that I heard were lost were mother cows and replacement heifers. Not a lot of stocker type cattle turned out there that time of year there, but mostly cattle turned out, but or mostly cows turned out. But we've seen a big outpouring of generous giving from this. People sending in, you know, donations, gifts. A lot of hay coming in. They've got quite a bit of hay stacked up, but it's going to take a lot of hay. I'm not telling you that they don't still need hay, but they do have significant stacks of hay all around in those drop areas, and pretty much every burg there or any little town that's close in that fire area has a drop spot where you can bring hay in there and drop it. Guys are really asking for feed too. They would like to have some cottonseed cake. That's what a lot of them supplement their cows with, and it's handy, and they got a good way to feed that. They need fencing supplies, but you know, I've talked to people about this, and I don't want to overstep my bounds or anything, but you know, I always say what I'm thinking. Don't haul hay 800 or 900 miles. That's foolish. It's you know, the freight's more than the hay. You could just send a donation for the amount of money you're going to spend on fuel, and that would help more than hauling hay down there when they've already got a lot of stacks of hay. Like I said, they're going to need a lot of hay, and they still need hay, but don't haul hay absorbing an amount of distance there, because the amount you're going to spend on fuel, you could just donate that money, and they could use that because they need things for households too, and they need water, and they need things for all the displaced people that are out there too. But you know, they need all they can get, guys, and there's lots of good places to donate, and I hope that you do, and it won't go unseen by people. But I tell you what, it's a bad deal. That fire was more devastating than I first thought, and I guarantee you it's more devastating than what you're thinking if you hadn't been up there and talked to the people that were in it. Calf markets are crazy again. They just keep reaching for the sky. Feeder markets were good early last week. They backed off a little bit after the board crashed. Your feeder board on Wednesday there, and your late week feeder sales, those going right on to feed, had backed up some, but the calf markets are still crazy. I was talking to a feeder flash gang member over the weekend, and he said, gosh, you know, with the fundamentals the way they are, and our numbers are down, and cheap feed and all this kind of thing, you know, is there any reason that we won't see $5 calves a pound? We've seen a lot of reports of $4 calves. I'm going to tell you about a big bunch that sold at the end of this report, but we've seen some light $4 calves. Are we going to see $5 calves? I think we're starting to bump our head on the roof here a little bit, because we can't get any more for fat cattle. We sold fat cattle steady last week, and you know, if we can't get up close to $2 a pound for fat cattle, I don't know how people can give any more than what they're giving for feeder cattle especially, and even calves. Even if you're putting some cheap weight on them, there's a limit to what you can give for them. But it's been flying high, and we've been having good times here selling these commercial cattle here for the last basically since the calendar year, and some before that. But let's talk about your board for last week. Your April live cattle futures: Monday was up 12 cents, Tuesday was down 12 cents, Wednesday was down 95, Thursday down 65, and then Friday up $3.10, with April live cattle ending the week at 188.45, and our market's 183. June ended the week at 184 smooth, so I guess they're expecting it to come back a little bit. Not sure about that. How about March feeder cattle? Monday was down 152, Tuesday was down a nickel, Wednesday was down 340. Our cash prices held up pretty good till after that, down 340, and then Thursday down another 60, and we thought maybe this thing was really coming off, and then Friday bounced all the way back up 397 on Friday. Wow, you don't see gains like that very often. March feeder cattle ended the week at 250, 297. April ended the week at 258 smooth. And your grains, I tell you what, we're looking at pretty cheap feed for these cattle, guys. March corn ended the week at 4.12 cents a bushel. March beans at 11.43, and Kansas City hard red winter wheat at $5.80 a bushel. But your fat cattle trade, it wasn't as bad as what we thought earlier in the week. Whenever they started putting out the 182, some cattle feeders perked their ears up at that, and we thought maybe we were going to have a lower market. We did not have a lower market, but it was only steady. And you know, we can't keep buying feeder cattle and calves higher and higher, tens of dollars higher every week, if we can't gain any more ground than that on our fat cattle. Now the beef did gain ground, so get a little bit of breathing space for these packers, but they're not going to give it up unless we make them, guys, and we just don't have enough leverage in the trade to make them anymore. But through Thursday, we'd sold 57,100. Negotiated trade in your 5 area. That's not terrible up through Thursday, but your prices for fat steers and heifers up through Thursday of last week, 181 to 185 live basis. That was steady to $1 higher. Your weighted average was 183.31. That was 30 some cents better than your weighted average ending the previous week. Dress sales ranged from 288 to 295. That was $1 to $5 higher in your price spread, but your weighted average was actually lower. We traded most of the cattle at 290 and not near enough at 292. So weighted average on dressed is going to be lower. Friday we saw a little bit of extra trade, about 2,000 in Iowa, 22,700 head for the week. Live sales in Iowa on Friday, 183 to 184, and dress sales at 292. Nebraska, 1,700 on Friday, 19,200 head for the week. Live sales in Nebraska on Friday, 183, and dress sales at 290. Kansas did not have any sales on Friday, but they sold nearly 14,000 for the week, which is a big movement for them. Texas, 150 head on Friday, just over 5,000 for the week. And their live price was just 182 on Friday, but bulk of the sales in Texas were 183. That was steady in the Southern Plains from 182 to largely 183. Northern Plains was mostly steady at 183 and steady to 2 lower at 290 dressed. Box beef cutout values were higher, and then they are having some luck keeping those higher and keeping the choice over $300. Choice cuts, your weighted average for all of last week was 303.21. That was $4.68 better than the previous week's weighted average. Your late choice sales on late Friday were $2 more than that weighted average at 305.28. So pretty good market there on your box beef cutout values, and all of that is because they dialed the slaughter back. And like I've been talking with a lot of people, sure would be nice to be able to control the supplies on both ends, control the supply of cattle by how many you slaughter, and then to control the amount of beef on the market also. But your packers have full control, but they've got themselves in a crimp right now with really tight market supplies, tight numbers of cows, and still awful good demand. But your weighted average on all of last week's select cuts was 292 1/4. That was up 589 compared to the previous week's weighted average. And your Friday afternoon sales were $3.50 more than that at 295.74 for select cuts on Friday afternoon, with a choice select spread on your weighted average of almost $11, and all that based on 564 loads of cuts, grinds, and trimmings. Your slaughter, they did say it was going to be under 600, just barely. It was 599,000, which wasn't as light as what we may have thought. 6,000 better than the previous week, but 27,000 less than the same week a year ago. They're really dialing that slaughter back as much as they can afford to, because their stockpiles and their freezers are low, and they've got good demand, guys. So it's going to be tough for them to completely turn that spigot off. Let's talk about what else is going on. Ag beef producers must continually plan to protect their operations profitability, along with limiting downside risk while facing volatile markets. Navigate risk management with Ever.ag. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DVAuction ended the week at 248.22. That was up $2.05 for the week, and most of those gains were all earlier in the week, and then maybe coming back over the weekend. But Thursday and Friday sales were lower. But your latest CME cash feeder cattle index was at 247 smooth, which that kind of, it freaks me out a little bit when I see the CME cash feeder cattle index at 247, completely rounded right there, 247 even. Your June live cattle at 184 even, and your April feeder cattle at 258 even. I mean, it just looks like they're picking a spot and just pegging it right there. But coming to you from Springfield, Missouri, come out here to go to the Buck Ridge Cattle Company bull sale. It's going to be on Monday at 2 o'clock Central, guys, right outside of Seymour, Missouri. Going to be giving a talk before the bull sale. Had an excellent meal there. And Mark and Logan Hayden there, they're very, very good hosts there, and they had an excellent meal. They gave me a look around the place and told me all about it. They had several of their friends and customers come in to eat, and met some really good people there on Sunday evening at the Buck Ridge Cattle Company headquarters, and you can check that sale out on DVAuction.com at 2 o'clock Central on Monday here. Cash feeder sales last week in your auctions, your feeder weights were steady to $5 higher early in the week, like I mentioned. Then after your board closed so much lower on feeder cattle on Wednesday, Thursday sales were kind of tough on feeder weights. Friday then, of course, come right back again because we saw the big gains, but a lot of big sales on Thursday and they were lower. But still, for the most part, your feeder cattle were steady to $5 higher. Calves sharply higher again, from $2 to $10 higher, and I saw some a lot more sharply higher than that. If you've got some grass out there, if you've got some graze out wheat, if you've got ways to put cheap pounds on those calves, the sky's kind of the limit. But we're pushing the sky. Your National BeefWire stick-out sale of the day for late last week and over the weekend was Burwell Livestock Market on Friday at 3,200 head, mostly a calf sale, and the market was sharply higher. You look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central, and look at your best tested weights. 633 head of 5-weight steers in Burwell average 528 with a weighted average price of $347.56. 530 head 6-weight steers average 640 at $302.47. Look at the heifers, the best tested weights. There's 402 head of 4-weight heifer calves average 446 at $329.21 on heifers, guys. And 478 head of the 5-weight heifers average 551 at $285.78. Give you some really impressive stick-out sales from all around there late last week and over the weekend. How about Crawford Livestock Market? My friends there at Crawford, Nebraska, they sold 92 steers, weighed 640 at $320.50. Wow. How about Fort Pierre Livestock Auction, Fort Pierre, South Dakota? Sells 65 big steers, weighed 894 at $251.75. Lanesboro Sales Commission up in Minnesota. They got a heck of a sale up there. I've been to that sale before. They sold some Holstein steers. You don't quite have to go to the zoo to see Holstein steers with that sex semen and everything done by AI, but they had some Holstein steers. I saw them in the ring. They looked good. They were nice, healthy, shiny, slick-haired and slick-headed Holstein steers there. 50 head of them weighed 409 Holsteins, guys. They bring 274. But the most impressive quote that I saw anywhere late last week or over the weekend, and your Macrocin No BS top quote for the day, come out of Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska. 64 steers, weighed 436, bring 402. Now guys, I know we've seen some individual calves and some single head lots even down in the South and in Florida and places like that, Mississippi even, bring over $4 a pound, but then they can cheapen them up with some cheaper calves. But you buy 64 head of them, weigh 436 at 402 in the Sandhills of Nebraska. That's over $17.50 a head, guys. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.